All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Today is Friday, October 18th, 2019, and we are watching potential Tropical Cyclone 16 as it does make its way to the Florida Gulf Coast going into tonight and tomorrow. So, this did not wind up getting named last night. I figured this would be tropical or really subtropical storm Nestor by now, but the Hurricane Center has chosen to leave this as a potential tropical cyclone, which I'm not sure is the spirit of what the whole PTC moniker was supposed to be to begin with. This probably should be a subtropical storm by now. I don't know why we sacrificed messaging clarity for being technically correct. But regardless of, they don't believe Nestor has really had enough of a organized circulation center yet, so they're leaving it as a potential tropical cyclone, which I think is needlessly confusing, but that's just me. All right, with the rant out of the way, just 50 seconds into the video, we can get into the actual weather. And what we're looking at again today, guys, is this hybrid subtropical storm, which is kind of a combination of a winter storm that would have been happening anyway, and the tropical aspect that has kind of enhanced what's going on. So, if you remember, we had the cold front come through on Wednesday night into Thursday morning. The front kind of set up across the Gulf Coast. And typically, what happens, especially when you have a split flow in the jet stream, you're going to get another low pressure form, likely through Texas, that's going to kind of come up the coast and move along anyway. So, with a short wave in the atmosphere that was going to trigger that, we were going to get a little bit of a storm going into this weekend regardless. But low pressure from the Bay of Campeche kind of brought more tropical moisture up with it, and this whole tropical disturbance has gotten caught in this. And now we have this sort of 50-50 tropical storm, winter storm brewing in the Gulf of Mexico, and that's going to run up along the western Florida Gulf Coast this weekend and bring a lot of adverse weather effects. Let's go ahead and look at the National Hurricane Center's forecast for quote unquote PTC 16, which is up to 60 miles an hour in terms of sustained winds. Now, this is only really occurring in this southeast quadrant here, but those winds of tropical storm force that are sustained do extend almost 100 miles from the center. So, uh, even though this is going to come along shore right here around Panama City, most of the big bend of Florida is going to get whacked right along the coast with these stronger winds, and these does have the potential for at least a few more hours to continue to strengthen. I think that as this comes ashore, it might start falling apart a little bit. I'll tell you why in a second. But it's not going to really be a joke, and I'm not really sure why we're leaving this 60 mile an hour, pretty strong looking little storm as a PTC. I'm sorry, I need to quit doing this. So moving right along here, we do what we're looking at essentially is we're about 12 to 16 hours from landfall of whatever this is going to be, and it's going to be essentially, it's not going to really be this truly tropical storm, but we're going to have a lot of effects that are very similar to tropical storms. Number one, the first thing is first, which is storm surge. That's always the biggest killer, the biggest threat with these things along the coast, and this one is going to be no exception. 3 to 5 foot of water rise is expected from Apalachicola all the way down towards Clearwater, Florida. Maybe 2 to 4 feet around the Tampa area because the winds are going to be more out of the south versus the east. But you're going to have a lot of strong winds. Your low pressure coming in like this, you're going to have these winds coming in, and you're going to have some strong water rise along the coast. And I'm not sure people are really prepared for it given how this is really being treated. But definitely something to keep in mind. The Florida Gulf Coast is always susceptible to storm surge, so it's always a threat and always need to be aware of it. So if you live along the immediate coast here, first things first, make sure you're safe and make sure you're away from that rising water. And then number two is going to be the rainfall. Now, the total rainfall amounts are going to be generally in this 2 to 3 inch range. But along the coast, of course, you're going to see a little bit more. Some of the stronger storms, you'll see more in that 4 to 6 inch range. But generally speaking, 2 to 3 inches on a very wide swath from South Georgia, Northeast Florida, and then through the Carolinas over the next few days, where this system is mostly going to be weighted. Outside of the wind and rain, something else to consider is a potential for severe weather, something that might not be talked about enough. So this is the simulated radar of how this might look from a high resolution computer model. So this is essentially going into, we're going to go ahead and move you to midnight going into Saturday morning. You see your warm front. This is going to have fronts sort of associated with it, like typical like warm and cold fronts. This is sort of what your warm front would be. You have this cooler air from the cold front that passed a couple days ago that's still trying to hold on. I mean, it's 72 degrees right now in Northeast Florida at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So you have that cooler air, and then you have this tropical air trying to come up. So you've got a warm front here back through parts of Florida that's going to be dumping that real continuous rainfall. And then you have this stronger cold front, which is going to be more severe thunderstorms back behind it. While that's happening, you do have your center where your stronger winds and rain and your surge is going to be occurring out to the east of that as these stronger winds come up around the east side of this low pressure. But the low pressure does come ashore early on Saturday, probably around 7, 8 o'clock or so, maybe a bit before, maybe like 6 a.m. This is 6 a.m. on the model, but you can see, the flow still has a lot of showers and storms over parts of Florida. That warm front has spread into parts of Georgia and maybe now just approaching South Carolina. So you got more of these scattered thunderstorms down here in Florida, more of an organized or continuous rainfall across Georgia. And then you have these severe coastal effects where that low pressure center is coming ashore. And then this is the other concern I have is a severe weather tail that's going to advance into the state of Florida over the next few hours, going into later in the day on Saturday. I'll back this up a little bit. So there's your severe weather tail as you watch here, and then it pushes through over the next few hours. The Storm Prediction Center does have a marginal severe weather outlook forecast, and they say there's some uncertainty really, and they think that it might be too cool right now. There may not be enough difference in warm and cold air for this thing to really drive too much thunderstorms. But they do note that it's possible. Um, could support at least a localized area convection, posing some risk of potentially damaging wind gusts and a couple of tornadoes. What that essentially is, going to turn into is the chance for that severe weather is very real across most of Florida as the severe weather tail will kind of push through there. So if you see a particularly nasty, squally band of showers and storms, don't be surprised. As far as winds are concerned, outside of the very center, the wind gust forecasts are still pretty significant. The dam nest might be overshooting these a little bit. This is 35 to 40 knots, which is 40, 45 miles an hour in terms of mile per hour winds. Maybe not, but I think a couple gusts to or above a tropical storm force are possible well into central Georgia, northeast Florida, and especially along the coastlines. These winds are going to have a little more of time over open water. So expect a very windy day as this pushes through well away from the center. And we're talking about Florida, Georgia, and then the Carolinas on Sunday. You're not going to escape the winds exactly either. So you can see those winds still look pretty strong moving through there. So overall, guys, with PTC 16, just remember that this is going to be felt well away from the center. It's going to be a very nasty day on Saturday for most of Georgia and Florida, and then also parts of southeast Alabama is going to get on this a little bit. This rain is beneficial. This is a very dry area right now that they definitely need the rain, and 2 to 3 inches in a widespread area will definitely help kind of knock the drought down a little bit. Won't bust it completely, but it'll definitely help. And just be aware that on Saturday, you're going to have bouts of these more continuous showers like this early on, and then it may transition to more of a thunderstorm threat going into the afternoon of Saturday. But widespread rainfall, widespread thunderstorms, wind gusts. It's going to be a very nasty day on Saturday, and then Sunday for the Carolinas. This is midnight Saturday as you see it kind of moves in. But nicer weather will come in, warmer weather, but nicer weather will come in behind this, and it'll be a pretty quick in and out. Just make sure you're ready. Make sure you're hunkered down by Saturday, by tonight. In this area because you don't want to be out and about in this on Saturday too much. So that's what I got for you guys on PTC 16. Hopefully we'll get this thing named at 5 p.m. and we'll quit messing around with the details. But we'll see what the Hurricane Center decides to do. Just be ready, and I wouldn't be surprised if this thing does overachieve a little bit in the next few hours. But regardless of a lot of nasty weather coming in over the next day or two. So that's what I got for you. As always, appreciate you watching and have a good one.